Goodness. All right, this has been a little bit of a nightmare. We've made a few, messed up a few. Lauren gets back tomorrow night. This has taken me much longer than originally expected. We will have to do our best, and we'll see what happens. All right, welcome back to the workshop. We got a special project for us today. Got to get it done pretty quick. In the next month or so, I'm going to be proposing to my girlfriend, Lauren. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I don't think she knows that it's coming, so it should be a pretty good surprise. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the ring box for the proposal. I have a really nice piece of walnut burl that I bought here. Bought this probably 6 months ago. She asked me why I needed such an expensive small piece of wood, and I said I had a project plan, but I couldn't tell her what it was. And this is what that project was. So to keep her from suspecting anything when I go to propose, I always have my AirPods in my pocket. What I want to do is build a ring box approximately the size of my AirPods so I can have this in my pocket and not have a giant ring box that you would get from a jeweler. Hopefully she won't suspect anything. We're gonna go ahead and cut a chunk out of this walnut crotch in that size. What we're gonna do is we're gonna shape the entire outside of the box first, and then I'm gonna cut it and split it so that everything fits perfectly. And then we're gonna have to do our best to line up the hinges. Ain't nothing to it but to do it, so let's go. Now that we have a few different blanks cut to size, I use a marking gauge to mark an even line all the way around the box where I'm going to separate the lid from the body. I use double stick tape to attach a magnetic saw guide that I made right on the line. I want to lose as little material as possible to keep the grain match looking crispy, so I'm using a Japanese pole saw with a really small kerf and that magnetic saw guide to keep the cut as straight as possible. Now I can mark out for the hinge holes with a marking knife, being careful to make super precise marks. I need the holes for the barrel hinges to line up perfectly. Once I have my hole locations marked, I can center punch super lightly, just enough to leave a divot for the brad point bit. I can feel the lines left by the marking knife with the tip of the center punch, and I can use that to position the center punch right at the intersection of the lines. Then I can take the box over to the drill press and drill the holes, creeping up on the perfect depth by testing the hole with one of the actual hinges, making sure it ends up just flush or below the face of the box. Now I can glue the hinges in using a fine tip on the glue bottle to squeeze super glue into the screw holes and around the edge of the hinge. Goodness. All right, this has been a little bit of a nightmare for various reasons, mostly because using these barrel hinges, your two holes for the hinges have to line up perfectly. If these two holes wander at all, the hinge is going to bind up like this one. I don't know if you can see that, but it gets close, but it binds up. And this was the one that was actually the closest, and it binds up because the screws cause the hinge to rotate a little bit. The first one that I made was this one. I went to super glue in the hinges because I had heard you don't want to try and screw them in, you want to super glue them in. The hinges are open from the bottom right here. Super glue got in there, glued the hinge shut. Hinge broke, best one screwed. Luckily, I had a big block of this walnut crotch, and I don't know if you can see all this, but we've made a few, messed up a few. Lauren gets back tomorrow night. This has taken me much longer than originally expected. I think what I'm gonna do, this is my last chance. It lines up pretty freaking close. I mean, it is barely off. And the way I did this is the way you'll see it in the video. I put a hint or a fence so that I can get the depth the same. And then I just marked out the verticals and lined up the point of the brad point bit. If I can get this one to work, I'm excited for this project. And Lauren, I love you very much, but this was much more difficult than it needed to be. Let's get this one done and get this project done and move on to better things. Now that we've managed to get these hinges installed and working correctly, we have one day to get this thing wrapped up before Lauren gets home from her trip. First thing we need to do is to make the mortise for the ring in the top and bottom of the box. I'm going to start by marking out the outline of where I want the mortise to go, and I'll route out the majority of the waste with my mortise jig. Shout out to the Wood Whisperer for the design of this thing. The setup block that is sticking out of the bushing slot has lines that show where the edges of the router bit will cut. I can line this line up with the line marked in the workpiece to ensure the router bit will cut right on that line. Then I just need to set the stops to cut as close to the line as possible on the left and right sides. I lower the bit about 1/4 inch at a time until I hit my desired depth. To fit the padding in the ring, the mortise will need to be larger than the diameter of the router bit. To make the mortise symmetrical, I can flip the workpiece 180 degrees and repeat the previous cuts. I almost forgot to adjust the depth stop between the bottom half and the top. That would have been a huge mistake. Now all that's left is to clean up the mortise with a chisel. Since I don't have a vise, I like to hold small parts with a screw clamp to keep them secure on the bench top. Since the front and back edges of the mortise are already established by the router, I like to reference the back of the chisel on that straight edge and rock it forwards to perfectly square up the corner. Then all I have to do is clean up the left and right edges, and the mortise should be good. Come on, up. Look at this. Good boy. Now that I've got the mortise figured out, I need to work on the outside of the box. I don't have a plane that works as a shooting plane I need to get one and set one up, but that's a later project. What I'm doing here is I made a shooting board, and I'm using a block of wood with 120 grit sandpaper to square up the edges. Doing this allows me to make sure that all the edges are perfectly flat, 90 degrees to one another, and ready to go. It was pretty close, so this just gets it that little bit extra. Now I'm going to round over the corners using the oscillating belt sander. I feel like my belt sander pushes a little bit towards me at the very bottom of the belt, which is why I'm using the box on top of another block of wood. I just eyeball it here. You can get it pretty close. Now the last thing to do on the outside of the box is round over all the edges. Here I hold the box in a screw clamp and use a piece of scrap wood on the top to hold it down. This piece is too small to comfortably route just freehand, but doing it this way allows you to have good control. For the last pass, I just double stick tape the workpiece to the underside of this scrap wood. We're just taking a little bit off here, so this is perfectly safe. This allows me to run it all the way around in one continuous pass. Now we've just got some final sanding with some sandpaper to clean the thing up, and then it's time to finish. One useful trick, if you're using little strips of sandpaper on curves, put duct tape on the back of the sandpaper. Even the cheap stuff will last way longer that way. Now we just got to drill some holes for the magnets to keep the lid closed. Off camera, I tested a couple different hole sizes and figured out the right one to use for these magnets. We're just going for a press fit on these. Figured out the easiest way to tap these in was to tap them in as part of a stack of magnets. Get them a good bit of the way there, and then you can tap it in with just one extra magnet on top. Make sure we get it flush with the surface. One thing to keep in mind is to make sure you get the orientation of the magnets correct. We want to make sure they're attracting each other and not pushing each other away. Now we're running out of time, so we're going to get this quick finish. Rubio Monocoat Pure. It's easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Use syringes to dose it out to make sure you got the right ratio. Mix it up, wipe it on, wipe it off. All right, while the finish is drying, we got to work on the padding for the inside of the box. What I got here is some thick foam weather stripping off Amazon. It's adhesive backed, so it'll stick to the inside of the box. We're going to cut a couple pieces out to match the inside dimension of the mortise. I want it to sit right at the surface. This stuff's easy to cut with a razor blade, and I'm trying to make it as square as possible. Now we've got some blue self-adhesive velvet. I'm just going to cut a square that's about a 1/2 inch bigger than my foam on all sides. Just peel that off and sit the foam on it right against the bottom edge. The way I'm going to cut this out, I'm going to cut a line right at the top edge of the foam and then another one about halfway up. Then we're going to cut out the corner. This way I can fold it over and fold that little flap down on the edge. And then when I fold over the top and the side, we have full coverage. We want to make sure that there's a little bit of the adhesive left in the middle. I'm not sure if it really matters, but I think this will help hold it into the box just in case. I'm using a little bit of the nonstick backing from the velvet, folding it over so that that leaves me a tab that I can pull out once I shove the foam into the box. Now that we've got the foam in, all that's left is to put the thing together. If you want to see how my engagement went, how it turned out, stick around at the end of the video. We'll talk a little bit about what I could have done better in this project, and then you'll see the engagement. But for now, B-roll. Alrighty, we've got it done, and it is freaking awesome. You've probably already seen the B-roll by now, but I'm really happy with how this turned out. It was a bit of an ordeal. It's pretty close to the AirPods case. It's a little thicker, and it's not quite as round. Couldn't round it enough just because of the hinges and the depth. These hinges were a total pain in the butt. I could not get them to line up to save my life. The way I ended up doing it in the end was probably the best way to do it, and I wish I had done that from the beginning, but it worked out. The top could be cleaner. There's some spots where it was dented up a little bit from the edge of the chisel. It's one of my first times chiseling out a mortise by hand, so I'll take it. It's okay. Another thing that most people probably wouldn't notice. And then the other thing is I used a marking knife to mark out the holes on the top. And one of the spots I actually moved after I marked it, so there's just a little plus mark right here and a couple little marking knife lines around the holes that didn't get drilled out. I should have probably marked those out with pencil, but at least for the hinge holes, I was trying to be as accurate as possible because of the issues I was having. So, you know, it is what it is. It doesn't ruin the thing. Next time, won't do it that way, but it worked out pretty well. I hope the proposal goes the same way. There will be some pictures at the end or videos if I have them of the proposal, so check that out. I'm really excited. Now I still have to keep this a secret for a couple more weeks. So wish me luck. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. And I'll be back again soon. Peace.
Stop it.